Good afternoon, guys. JR with Secure Metals Exchange bringing you another technical analysis for today, September the 19th. It is approximately 12:01 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Guys, today I'm going to actually do something a little bit different. I'm going to do two-part video. The first part is going to be going over some news articles that haven't really made it to mainstream media that I think you guys should know about. And obviously, as always, the second part is going to be my technical analysis. But first, we'll get to some of these articles. Now, really, what I've set up is sort of a timeline here on some of these articles and some of the things that we've been hearing here from, since 2010 and so on, and some of the things that are actually coming together right now. And without further ado here, I'll start this. So this first article I think is a great article. By the way, if you guys are interested in any of these articles, do not hesitate to shoot me out an email or give us a call here at 888-928-5546, and I'll be more than glad to send you some of these links if you're interested. I'm obviously not going to read all this for you guys. But with that said, really what's happening in the last few years, there's really been a shift in the U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar being the reserve currency of the world, we really have a contract with the world that states that anyone buying oil or commodities and so on, in the early 70s, we set up a trade agreement with the world. And to make a long story short, you guys all know that the dollar is the reserve currency of the world. So this article here talks a little bit about the shift that most of these countries are doing away from the U.S. dollar. So I'll start by reading this little section here. For decades, the U.S. dollar has been absolute dominant in international trade, especially in the oil markets. This role has created immense demand for U.S. dollar, and that international demand constitutes a huge part of the dollar's valuation. Not only did the global currency's role add a massive value to the dollar, but it also created an almost endless pool of demand for U.S. treasuries, and countries around the world sought to maintain stores of petrodollars. The availability of all this credit dominated in dollars, supported by nothing less than the entirety of the global trade, enabled American federal governments to borrow without limit and spend with abandon. So the fact that when China needs to buy oil from Iran or whomever, the fact that they have to denominate that purchase in dollars, that basically means that every time China is going to buy 1 million barrels of oil or of crude oil or whatever the case is, they have to pay an exchange rate. And that exchange rate, the U.S. dollar, in essence, they have to buy U.S. dollars and then buy the oil, right? So that's one of the reasons why our dollar is supported. That's one of the main reasons why our dollar is so strong, is because if we get ourselves into debt, it doesn't really matter all that much, because we know there's going to be plenty of countries out there that are going to continue to buy our dollars simply because we have that trade agreement. So I'll go on here. The dominance of the dollar gave the United States incredible power and influence around the world, but the times they are a changing. As a matter of fact, I have a little sound bite here.
For the times they are a changing.
Oh yeah. So as the world's emerging economies gain ever more prominence, the U.S. is losing hold of its position as the world's superpower. Many on the long list of nations that dislike America are pondering ways to reduce American influence in their affairs. Ditching the U.S. dollar is a very good start. Now, one of the main reasons why some of these countries obviously want to get away from the dollar is because what we're doing to the dollar, we're propping up the dollar, we're printing a lot of money. And again, remember, money doesn't grow on trees. It has to arrive from somewhere. So if the Federal Reserve has a certain amount of reserves and the country needs more money, when you hear quantitative easing and when you hear Operation Twist and when you hear these programs where we're printing money, what happens is they print this money out of thin air. The money doesn't exist, and what they're doing is they're adding zeros to a computer, and in essence, they're creating money out of thin air. Now, we all know what happens when you create money out of thin air. Inflation That's basically called inflation when you print money out of thin air, when you inject money into an economy. That's called inflation. A lot of people actually think that inflation is prices going up, but inflation is actually not prices going up. Inflation is really the result of printing money that you don't have. So when you have excess money, one of the side effects of printing money is prices going up. So again, inflation is not necessarily prices going up, is the direct effect of inflation, and that's really what that's really why commodity prices go up. Now, this article again talks a lot about how the US dollar maintains its strength. I'm going to skip over this one. And here, this was back in November of 2010. This article basically was one of the first articles where we see a major shift from the US dollar to other currencies. So China-Russia currency agreement further threatens the US dollar. This article was back in 2010, in late 2010. China and Russia have agreed to allow their currencies to trade against each other in spot interbank markets. The motive is to promote the bilateral trade between China and Russia, facilitate the cross-border trade settlement of the yuan, and meet the needs of economic entities to reduce the conversion cost. So, again, this is a first sign here that countries are no longer following the agreement. Some of these countries, again, they're no longer interested in US dollars, especially China. China already holds enough dollars, and they do not want to continue to hold dollars. Why don't they want to continue to hold dollars? Because we continue to print more money. We continue, Bernanke in 2009, 2010. I mean, literally, this guy. I mean, Bush started, I guess. The guy printed over $3 trillion, while in 2 terms. The problem is now that Obama has printed $4 trillion in 1 term. God knows how much more he's going to print. I'm not advocating Obama or Romney, but I'm just saying that Bush began printing, Obama took the baton, and this guy just ran much faster than Bush. So again, we continue to debase our currency. We continue to print money that we don't have. Okay. The latest move, a continuation of a series of efforts by both countries to move away from the US dollar usage in international trade, further threatens the dollar's reserve currency status. And this is the major headline. Again, as these countries stop buying American dollars to buy these commodities or to exchange goods, our dollar begins to fall and begins to lose value. On top of that, you add money printing, and again, it gets a little bit, it starts getting a little bit more dangerous, because again, printing money means we're adding debt, and if we don't have other countries backing up that debt, then we could be in for a big treat here. Okay. Then we have, now again, remember, this was back in 2010. This article is actually from early this year. Sanctions dodged. India to pay gold for Iranian oil. China may soon follow. Okay, so this was early this year. China may soon follow. India has reportedly agreed to pay Tehran in gold for the oil it buys, in a move aimed at protecting Delhi from U.S. sanctions targeting countries who trade with Iran. China, another buyer of Iranian oil, may soon follow. So that was again, this was an article back here in early 2012. I'm sorry, early 2012. And then the next article here, this was back in April of 2012. India and China to buy gold. I'm sorry, to buy oil with gold. It seems India and China have agreed to pay Tehran in gold for the oil that it buys. India is importing 14 million tons of oil from Iran and has agreed to pay for it with gold. Now, guys, this is huge. This is really, really, really big. It's really good for us. It's no bueno for the U.S. dollar. And this is again, we're starting to see a slow shift in fundamentals here, and how money's traded, and how the world is looking at the U.S. dollar. And again, what gives the dollar strength is the fact that people are buying dollars, not that people are selling dollars. Again, as countries continue to sell dollars, our dollar is going to continue to lose value. That, coupled with Bernanke's quantitative easing here and printing money, his little printing press, again, we're really putting ourselves here in a bind. And it's really time to start really paying attention here. So again, there's another article here where again we see a shift away from the dollar. Now this is the most recent article here, guys. This is the announcement. This was about a week and a half ago. This is actually about 2 weeks ago. The Chinese government announces the dollar no longer primary oil currency as China begins to sell oil using yuans. So again, there you guys have it. The Chinese are no longer using the US dollar to purchase or to even sell their goods. And on September 11th, Pastor Lindsey Williams. Now, again, keep in mind, September 11th was when this Pastor Lindsey Williams announced it, but the actual announcement came about on September 6th of this year. But if you don't know who Lindsey Williams is a local pastor here down here in South Florida. I've been listening to Lindsey Williams speak here for quite some time now, and I got to tell you, at first I thought he was some type of extreme conspiracy guy. I mean, you hear this guy talks. I mean, the guy would tell you, sit down, because what I'm about to tell you is going to scare the bejesus out of you, and so on and so forth. So he sounds like a really like a real extremist. But again, I mean, I've been hearing this guy talk since early 2011, and I got to tell you, this guy is spot on. He actually predicted that the U.S. dollar was no longer going to be the reserve currency of the world, and he predicted that was going to happen this year. So, again, on September 11th, Pastor Lindsey Williams, former minister to the global oil companies during the building of Alaskan pipeline, announced the most significant event to affect the U.S. dollar since its inception as a currency. For the first time since 1970, when Henry Kissinger forged a trade agreement with the Royal House of Saud to sell oil using only U.S. dollars, China announced its intentions to bypass the dollar for global customers and began selling the commodity using their own currency. So again, guys, there's the announcement that it's official. They're no longer going to use dollars. Now, I find it kind of odd that this news starts to go viral. I wouldn't say go viral, but that this news you have development of news like this. And literally a week later, less than a week later, Bernanke announces Quantitative Easing 3. Now, again, it wasn't necessarily announced as Quantitative Easing 3, but it was announced as an extension of Operation Twist. And I actually have the footage, the video with Bernanke announcing it. So it was kind of odd to me how you have such developments as this, and then a week later, Bernanke starts the printing press again. And I'm wondering if he wants to... I'm wondering what the goal is. I don't know if he's trying to get us not to focus on foreign affairs and what other countries are doing, and get us to focus on him and on the printing press, so we forget about everything else that's happening. So again, that's neither here nor there. What's really important is the actual events that are currently unfolding here. And the last video that I'm going to show, actually the last article I'm going to show is actually not an article, it's a video. And this video is Bernanke announcing the quantitative easing. Now, I meant, again, before I press play here, I want you guys to understand something. In the previous sessions of quantitative easing and Operation Twist, there's always been an announcement of a certain amount of money. I believe the first I believe the first round of Operation Twist was 400 billion. Then the second round came out somewhere around 250 billion, and this is the third round. So they actually, the name of this article is actually Bernanke QE3 announcement, but it's really not a QE3. It's really not quantitative easing. It's really an extension of Operation Twist, and just listen up to some of the things that he says here.
At 8.1%, the unemployment rate is nearly unchanged since the beginning of the year and is well above normal levels. To help bolster the recovery and promote price stability, the FOMC has provided unprecedented levels of policy accommodation in recent years. With inflation anticipated to run at or below our 2% objectives,
inflation to run at or below 2%. Again, is inflation at 2% or less? It just doesn't really make any sense. I mean, again, this guy just must not go to the supermarket himself. Maybe he has his servants go over there and they're just buying everything, and he just doesn't realize that prices have gone up a lot more than what he thinks.
The committee has become convinced that further policy accommodation is warranted to strengthen the recovery and support the gains we've begun to see in housing and other sectors. Specifically, the committee decided to purchase additional agency mortgage-backed securities, or MBS, at a pace of $40 billion per month. The program of MBS purchases should increase the downward pressure on long-term interest rates more generally, but also on mortgage rates specifically, which should provide further support for the housing sector by encouraging home purchases and refinancing. And if we do not see substantial...
Now, before he goes on, I just want to add. So this guy is buying what he's doing is he's doing a program that's indefinitely going to buy $40 billion worth of mortgage-backed securities. So in essence, every month from here on out, until further notice, these guys are going to print $40 billion every single month. It's not money that they have on reserves waiting for an emergency situation. This guy is printing $40 billion every single month. This guy is printing $40 billion a month in order to support this economy. Now, again, if you understand the fundamentals, if you, as more investors and as more individuals begin to realize the psychology behind inflation, they're going to start buying, they're going to start getting away from the US dollar, and they're going to start buying other currencies, like, again, gold, silver, Australian dollar, Swiss francs, stronger currencies that have been proven to stay strong during economic downfall here. But again, $40 billion a month indefinitely, that doesn't sound too good.
Substantial improvement in the outlook for the labor market, we will continue the MBS purchase program, undertake additional asset purchases, and employ our policy tools as appropriate until we do.
Now, basically what he said there is that they're going to continue to do this and continue to buy these mortgage-backed securities until they see fit. So basically what he's saying is these guys are just willing to do anything to not allow the economy to collapse. And what they fail to realize is that the more they pump, the bigger the collapse is going to be. But this is the world that we're living in, guys.
We will, as always, take appropriate account of the inflation outlook and of their efficacy and costs. FOMC participants see an economic outlook that remains uncertain. The economy continues to face economic headwinds, including the situation in Europe, tight credit for some borrowers, and fiscal contraction at the federal, state, and local levels. The Federal Reserve is fully committed to both sides of its mandate, to price stability as well as to maximum employment.
So I guess that's one of his mandates, price stability. But as we can see in the last 5 years, in the last 10 years, there really hasn't been any type of stability in prices. If anything, prices are actually coming up exponentially. And again, guys, these are the types of things that we need to continue to prepare for. You know, Federal Reserve, governments around the world are starting to buy a lot of gold. They're starting to buy a lot of silver. They're trying to get away from the US dollar. And it's time that you really start looking at your portfolio. Really time for you to look at what you have out there. And again, gold and silver do not lose purchasing power simply because they're real money. The dollar, because it's not real money, continues to lose purchasing power. So again, long term, what we need to start doing is we need to start looking at our portfolios, and what we need to do is we need to make educated decisions based on how much you want to hedge. My suggestion is, and you know, as a rule of thumb, 15 to 20% of your net worth should be, or the money that you have for investments, should be placed in precious metals, because again, especially during inflationary times. Now, during non-inflationary times, you want to hold at least 8 to 10%, no matter what happens, because at least at that point, you're protected. And again, your purchasing power is protected. You know, if you go out and it's cold and I tell you to wear a jacket and it's not cold, you can simply take the jacket off. If you go out and you don't wear a jacket and it is cold, you're most likely going to die. So why not protect yourself? Why not hedge yourself? The economy is obviously a mess. There's no signs of a recovery. This guy wants to prop up the housing market again by purchasing he wants to purchase more mortgage-backed securities. In essence, what that's going to do is it's going to bring interest rates down. It's going to create an artificial demand for real estate prices. Now, again, remember what happened in early 2000. That's what these guys did. They created a false demand for real estate. They brought interest rates down. Okay, they subsidize all these mortgage-backed mortgages, and that's what happened. When the government gets involved in a sector, they create false demand, and once the free market makes the adjustment, that false demand reveals itself, and people start selling off. I mean, listen, in 2004 and 2003, people that were making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year were purchasing 2 or 3 homes. Why? Because they can buy 2 or 3 homes without any down payment, without having the income to support all these properties. And when the market fell, these guys could no longer support these properties, and this is why we had the housing collapse. So what these guys are trying to do is they're trying to start another real estate. They're trying to start another real estate bubble, assuming that with more people buying homes. Again, the average is that for every home purchased, it creates about I believe it's 12 to 15 jobs. But that's what these guys are trying to do. They're trying to prop up the housing market again. It didn't work before. The Operation Twist in 2011 didn't work. The Operation Twist in 2012 in June didn't work. So this extension of Operation Twist is not going to work again, guys. And all they're doing is propping up the dollar. They're propping up businesses. And when this false demand goes away, again, you're going to have that meltdown. And this is why you should protect yourself. Buy gold and silver. Buy euros. I'm sorry, not euros. You definitely don't want to buy euros, but you want to buy strong currencies, the Swiss francs, the Australian dollars, the gold, silver. These are currencies that are strong. And again, is a way for you to diversify. I'm not telling you to put all your eggs in one basket, but what I'm saying is protect yourself, hedge yourself against inflation. You know what? I heard somebody say something very important just 2 days ago, and he says, you know what? I'm investing in anything that Bernanke cannot manipulate, because these guys are willing to do anything to make you think that the United States is not in trouble. And let me tell you, we are in a lot of trouble. Pay attention to what's going on. Stop listening to CNBC, CNN, because these guys, all they tell you is the one thing they want you to hear is, don't worry, don't worry. We're okay. The fact is, we're not okay. Pay attention to your portfolio. Do not allow your purchasing power to go to crap, because at the end of the day, that's what's happening. These guys are propping up industries. They're propping up sectors, and it's not working. It's never worked before, and it's not going to work now. Look, guys, I'll finish the video with this. In 2006, 2007, had you had an IRA with $100,000 in there, that IRA today would have a value, that purchasing power, it would have a value today of roughly $60,000, a little bit over. Actually, a little bit under, actually, because it's lost more than 40% of its purchasing power within the last 6-7 years. So now that's not including what happened in 2008 and 2009 when we had the market collapse. 55% of all IRAs lost a minimum of 35% of their value. So not only did they lose value because the market went down, but they also lost purchasing power. So if you had an IRA with $100,000, that IRA probably has a value of, let's say, I would probably say $65,000 to $70,000, but it would also have a purchasing value of about $40,000 to $45,000. And that's what's important, purchasing power. Now, had you diversified, had you had $80,000 in that IRA, had you had $20,000 in gold, what would have happened? That $80,000 would now have a value of, let's say, $50,000, $55,000, but your gold would now have a value of about $60,000 to $65,000. So again, it's a perfect hedge against inflation. You know what? If I'm wrong and all these other economists, if these guys are wrong, guess what? Your $80,000 now becomes $90,000, and your $20,000 now becomes $15,000. So again, it's a perfect balance. It's a balancing act. And as a hardworking American, you definitely want to pay attention to what's going on. You want to protect your purchasing power. The last comment I'll make here is this: in 1963, okay, and those of you who know me, you've heard me say this 1,000 times. In 1963, the average gallon of gas was roughly 27 cents. 27 cents for a gallon of gas. You can actually look that up online, okay? That was 27 cents to buy a gallon of gas. Today, the average cost is roughly $3.67. That's the average price this year thus far. If you have a quarter from 1963, now keep in mind, in 1963, prior to 1964, all coins, all American coins, not all of them except for the penny, but nickels, dimes, quarters, half dollars, dollars, dollar coins, all these coins had a minimum of 90% silver. In 1964, America got a bit greedy again, and they stopped producing coins out of pure silver, 90% silver. And they started making them with cheap metals, lead, copper, zinc, and so on. So the point of this, the moral of the story is this. If you have a quarter from 1963, because it contains 90% silver, you can still buy a gallon of gas because that quarter is worth roughly $5.50. So that basically means that gold and silver do not lose their purchasing power. Even though you saw silver in 1980 hit $50 and then drop back down, it didn't matter because as it went down, so did commodities as well. So that's why you want to have that perfect balance. During inflationary periods, 20%. During non-inflationary periods, 8 to 10%. Again, guys, I'm not a financial advisor. These are all my opinions. With that said, I've done a lot of studies in the economy, and listen to what I'm saying, guys. Do some homework, make your own decisions, and again, protect your purchasing power because again, that dollars are losing value, gold and silver are gaining value, and again, even if they lose, they still can maintain their purchasing power. Guys, I hope you guys like this video. Again, call your representative immediately, 888-928-5546. Call me directly, send me an email, info@securemetals.com. And if you have any questions, that's what we're here for, all right? I hope you enjoy the video. Have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye. Oh, yeah, guys. And by the way, always remember that if you have a 401k IRA, we can also show you how to transfer funds or roll over into gold and silver without any types of penalties whatsoever. Again, 888-928-5546, 888-9-BULLION.